Welcome to today's episode, everyone. We've got a very exciting guest for you guys. For those of you just joining the podcast, we're E.N.G Media, and we specialize in helping software and technologies companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your software or tech business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop us the word growth in the DMs. So without further ado, thank you so much, Jon, for coming on our podcast today. I'm excited to dive into Fiscal Advocate and all the awesome things that you guys are doing.
Tyson, thanks for having me on here. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's just start by maybe you telling us a little bit about Fiscal Advocate and the role that you play, in the day to day.
Yep. So what Fiscal Advocate does is it basically is the outsourced finance department for professional service companies, typically between 5 and 50 million. Nice. And what we do is what most people think of as like bookkeeping, so like invoicing, AR, AP, payroll, closing your books, month-end close. But there's a whole more strategic side called financial planning and analysis. And this is all about making better decisions using your financial data. So it will help you understand from a budgeting and forecasting, a cash flow analysis, a resource planning, what decisions you want to make. And I specifically want people to focus on 3 decisions. How much cash they have relative to their monthly overhead. I like to use this as an example, but Microsoft bought LinkedIn for $26.2 billion in an all-cash deal. If you have lots of cash, you have lots of optionality. The second one is your profit margin. The typical profit margin for any service-based company should be 20%. And then lastly, how fast are you growing in terms of your revenue? And I also want that to be at 20% to be considered best of breed.
Gotcha. So you're not just helping service companies track their data and having it all in spreadsheets. You're pretty much taking on the role of like consulting and helping them understand it in ways that, they can save money and invest into higher leverage things to help them grow their business and improve their margins.
Exactly. We've also built software that does your budgeting and forecasting, your business intelligence, and your benchmarking. Well, what I want people to think about is all of us only have time or money. And how you spend that time and how you spend that money relative to your competition is going to determine if you grow.
Right.
There's so much gold in your financial data that if you organize it properly and you know what questions to ask to get the right insights out of your financial data, you can just make better decisions in those 3 major KPIs that I just mentioned.
Roger that. Yeah, that's so true. I think from your perspective as well, I know you work with a lot of professional service companies. You mentioned that you work with like a lot of agencies and people in different kinds of spaces, anybody essentially with a service. From your perspective, do you see, people having a really good pulse on what's going on with their financial data? Or usually when you step in, is it pretty much like nothing's being tracked and it's kind of unorganized?
So I would say that there is a hybrid from people who had good financial data to companies that were a complete mess. Generally, though, what I'd say is most of the clients, the data was not organized until they started working with us. There's very specific questions I want to be able to answer, and the data needs to be organized in a way to do that. Now, when people come to me, I generally find that there are 2 types of companies that come to me. The first one is what I'll call is the financially distressed company. They are running out of cash, they're losing money, they have debt, and they just need someone to stabilize their business. The second one are companies that have hit a plateau. That plateau might be 5 million, it might be 10 million, it might be 30 million. But all of a sudden they're not growing anymore, and they don't know why, and they don't know what to do about it. And so in those scenarios, I'll just use revenue growth as an example. There are only 4 things you need to do to grow your revenue. You can either increase the number of customers you win a year. You can increase your average order value so the deals you win are bigger. You can reduce your churn so you are holding on to your customers longer, or you can upsell more. That's it. It's the only 4 ways outside of M&A, which I guess would be an inorganic way of growing, to grow your business. And so understanding that in order to improve the math, you have to change something in your decisions. You might invest more in sales and marketing. You might invest in your product or your service so that it reduces churn. And so your finance department helps you strategically think about what you should be investing in to make that happen.
100%. Yeah. So it's almost, ideally everybody should be spending more money on marketing and advertising their business, or, like you said, increasing the LTV of their customers. But finding that cash, a lot of the times, obviously you don't want it to eat more into your margins. So like freeing up space and understanding how to look at your financials is a good way to avoid that. Right.
Yeah, I'll just give you an example. So before I founded Fiscal Advocate, I founded an advertising agency called Rise Interactive.
Uh-huh.
We rise from zero to just under 40 million in 16 years.
Nice.
And the trick of how I did that was a few things. So the first is I was obsessed with my gross margin. The gross margin is how profitably were you able to service your customers?
Gotcha.
And we had a gross margin when I left around 57%.
Nice.
What I tell people is that you need to be between 50 and 60%. Anything over 60%, you're probably either screwing over your customers or your employees, but that's the sweet spot. Now, because we had such a great gross margin, I could invest more in innovation and I could invest more in sales and marketing. By investing in innovation, we were able to make sure that we had a really strong retention rate. I always explain that if your number one sales goal is don't lose a client due to performance.
Right.
Okay, so if you think about a salesperson, if you have a really good salesperson, they're going to tell you all sorts of things to get you to sign a contract. If you can make the client experience and the results better than that sales process, you've hit a home run. And the only way you can do that is constantly invest in making your service better.
100%.
The second thing is we would look at what percent of our revenue did we spend on sales and marketing. The average agency spends 8%. We were probably closer to 16%. So we were able to build our brand because we improved our margins, and then we could take that improvement in the margins and invest it in sales and marketing.
That's awesome. So it's almost like you had a use case for yourself before starting Fiscal Advocate at this point. And so is that kind of what led you to find this value proposition in the market?
Exactly. So my last 3 years at Rise, I had a business coach. I would meet with him every 3 months. And he's like, the insights that you have is like nothing I've ever seen. Like you could create a business just selling those insights to other companies. And when I stepped down from Rise, I didn't know what to do next. I was like, you know what? I think that's what I want to do.
Right.
So I started building technology. I started creating a great service offering. And, we're 5 years into it and helping a ton of companies scale and grow and stabilize their finances.
That is awesome. And did you end up bringing on like a team of developers or anybody in did you build out like a tech department to?
Yeah, we have. So I recommend for all service-based companies that you have 4 leaders. You have a leader for growth, so that's sales and marketing. A leader for your client service department, so that's the person responsible for all renewals, upsells, the results of your clients, and the profitability of your client work. A head of your back office, so HR, legal, corporate IT, general administrative expenses, and your finance department. And then a head of innovation.
Okay.
And so we have 25% of our revenue today is just dedicated to making our product and services better.
Oh, wow.
A fully dedicated team that is designed to improve the product and the service that we offer to our customers and ultimately help them get better results.
That is awesome. And so, another big question that I had for you was, and it's amazing too that you had an advertising company for 16 years before you started Fiscal Advocate. So I'm really curious to get your insights on this. But, I always like to ask, like, how are you currently reaching your customers? But based off what you told me, it sounds like by you making your product and the service that you offer to your customers better, I'm assuming you probably get a lot of referrals coming back to you. Is there anything else that you do to market your product and services?
Absolutely. So I'm living based on what I preach to my clients. I try to live myself. So my big marketing play is that for any marketing agency or any professional service company over 5 million in revenue, I've created what I call as the professional service community. It is free to join. You get access to a peer-to-peer group. You get access to a Slack channel. You get access to like really notable, like high-level speakers on a monthly basis. You get access to in-person events. And so the community is my chance to build deep relationships with people. And it's free. It's incredibly high value for no cost.
Right.
And so that's been the way that I get to build rapport and relationships, and that ultimately turns into lead gen for myself.
Oh, awesome. So you're not like running any kind of paid media, or you're not really necessarily spending for marketing. You essentially have that community that's bringing your
That is my starting point. What I always explain to people is you got to find a play that works and
right.
then go all in on that play. And
100
so eventually, we're still a small company. So, we're 5 years in, we've grown nicely, but there's limited resources. So I don't have a massive media budget today.
Right.
At some point, I might put a media budget, but that media budget might be literally to get people to join the community.
Right. Because
And, um, but, and then from there's all sorts of things from a technology standpoint I can do to make the community better. But the idea is that the community should be such high value to everyone that is a no-brainer. I then don't sell my services, but I want everyone to know what my services are.
yeah.
And over time, as they start realizing, hey, I need help with budgeting and forecasting, or I need help with my benchmarking insights or my resource planning, I feel like I'll be the natural one to come to
Right.
because of that.
100%. Yeah, I love what you just said. Like once you find what's working, you have to go 100% all in on it. At least from my experience, I notice, a lot of companies will try another channel or try something different from what's already working instead of just doubling down on it. And most cases, usually that doesn't work out and everything ends up turning into a mess. And I wanted to bring it up as well. The community that you built, what was the name of that community again?
It's called the professional service community.
Professional services community. And so if I'm, an agency or a service-based business that's doing over 5 million a year in ARR, outside of just benchmarking and financial insights, is it a place that people can go to network and connect with other similar sized companies and share insights and about growth?
Yeah. So you get access to a Slack channel, private Slack channel. So like, if you have any question of like, hey, I'm struggling with my employee with this, can someone help me? The community will help answer that question. There are in-person events primarily in Chicago.
Nice.
You get access to a peer-to-peer group. So if you're a CEO of a company, you get connected with a bunch of other CEOs that meet on a monthly basis.
Wow.
I then bring in speakers on a monthly basis. So to give you an example, May's speaker is going to be the former chairman and chief creative officer of Leo Burnett. So I'm bringing in very recognized, notable speakers. And then lastly, there are certain playbooks I want you to follow, and I'm giving you free resources and free tools to use within the community.
Awesome. And so it's just communicating that out and educating your client base or anybody in that community about those resources then.
And to give you an example, this is new. Like right now, we're about 4 weeks away, but we're going to launch a section on our website where you can sign up for the community and learn more about it. You can't sign up. You can actually apply for membership, and then that'll come to me in a committee, and we'll deem if you're ready, if you meet our criteria to become a member. But, we're building the infrastructure for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like you guys have grown a ton over the past 5 years. Kind of going back to my first question, for you, do you have like specific roles and responsibilities in the day-to-day for your business at this point? Or are you just fighting fires essentially like as they come up?
No, so I have about 20 employees.
Nice.
If you remember, I mentioned the 4 key roles. So a head of sales and marketing, a head of client delivery, a head of back office, and a head of innovation. I have a head of innovation. I have a head of operations and finance. I have a head of client delivery. I am the head of sales and marketing right now. So I'm CEO and the head of sales and marketing. But otherwise, I have really amazing team members in each one of those other areas.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you for sharing those insights. And, if you had to choose, what are some goals for Fiscal Advocate in the next 12 months related to growth? You sound like a very data-driven leader.
Yeah.
Do you have any very quantifiable goals, to get your company to the level you want it?
Absolutely. So a couple things. One, I recommend everyone has on an annual basis 4 goals. So they should have a revenue goal, a profit goal, a cash goal, and then an infrastructure goal. The infrastructure goal means that your business at the end of the year should be better than it was at the beginning of the year. And then I recommend that every 90 days you have a plan in place to achieve that infrastructure goal. And so we have very specific things that we want on our product roadmap. We have very specific things we want to invest in terms of sales and marketing. So we have very clear goals. And then financially, we should grow about 60% year over year is our annual goal.
Based off that. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That is awesome. And, a lot of companies that I talk to aren't, I guess, so structured in exactly where they want to go and, and using data to back that as well. I know you mentioned earlier that you had previously worked with a business coach and mentorship. Do you still continue to invest into mentorship and into growth, like in your professional career?
I think it's absolutely crucial you do. So I have a full board because we raised money.
Nice.
But the chairman of the board was the CEO of a company called Fiscal Education. He took it from 500 million to 1.2 billion.
Nice.
And I talk to him multiple times every week, and I have a great relationship with him. So that's my mentor. At my last agency, there's a person named Jack Kraft, who was the former COO and CFO of Bill Burnett, and he, was actively involved in every decision I made, and I talked to him regularly. So I in every business, I believe it's really important that you get a mentor who can teach you something that's going to help you scale and grow.
Absolutely. And, kind of transitioning as well, you mentioned like the goals for your business, like you have those 4 goals related to growth and you're expected to grow 60% year over year. It sounds like you don't really have any kind of, everybody has problems or bottlenecks in the way of their business, but it sounds like you have like kind of a clear plan on how to solve those and how to mobilize teams around kind of avoiding them. Maybe even for similar companies, doing something similar to what you guys have. What would you say, is one thing that you see getting in the way of people getting to their goal based off, similar companies that are at the size you're at now, getting from there to where you want to be?
It's so hard to say because every company has different problems.
Right.
But I'll tell you a couple things that are important to me. So the first thing is I believe in having a very long-term view of your business. I plan on doing this for the next 20 years.
Nice.
And I want to build a great company. I'm not worried about the exit. I'm not worried about selling. I feel that takes care of itself if you build a great business.
Absolutely.
The second thing is I really believe that you have to have what I call the pursuit of world class. Like if you're going to sell something, whoever you're selling it for, so in your case, software and technology companies, you need to have the best marketing solutions possible for that specific audience. Now, when I say you have to have the best, what I mean is it's a journey that you're constantly investing in incremental improvements to make your service offering better and better. So that's the second one. The third one is you have to build a sales and marketing machine that gets your phone to ring. And if your phone is not ringing, it's really hard to scale your business because you will lose customers. Right. Even if you have a great product and service, you're still going to lose customers. So it's how do you make sure that the phone is constantly ringing? And by the way, you also might have some customers that are awful and you want to get rid of. And sometimes you can't because you're so financially dependent on them. So the more you can get your phone to ring from the outside, the more you can replace bad or replace clients that were good but you lost.
That's huge. Yeah, those are all huge insights. Definitely relatable from my perspective as well. But I think the biggest thing I took from what you just said was having a very good product market fit. Like having a world-class experience for your customers is huge because if you try to get your phone to ring with you're just going to end up churning customers and it's just going to be a huge mess. I see that a lot in the marketing space. 100%. And, if anybody wants to connect with you or they want to check out Fiscal Advocate, what would be the best place? Obviously your website, but is there anywhere else that they can go to get more information?
Yeah, so they can go to fiscaladvocate.com. They can follow me on LinkedIn. I post multiple times per week on different insights on how to grow service-based companies. And then they're welcome to email me at jon@fiscaladvocate.com.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to include all the links that you just mentioned in the description of the YouTube video and on social media as well. I highly recommend you guys check out Fiscal Advocate and the awesome things that they're doing. But other than that, thank you again, Jon, for your time and for your insights today. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.
Great meeting you, Tyson. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.